Welcome to Protect Your Children Now with your host, Christopher Gelson. We are glad that you are here. Tonight, we have a very disturbing but educational show for you. 82,000 victims. Some of you probably heard of this already with the Boy Scouts of America. We came across this very, very well done video, detailed timeline report of how all this was able to take place for so long. And we're talking about like 3 decades here. And it's not very unsimilar to the way the Catholic Church handled things, right? Just moving people around, not talking, keeping it quiet, scaring the kids. A lot of the same kind of culture was going on in the Boy Scouts of America. The once trusted organization, right? God and family. Right? Survival of the fittest. Teach you how to be a man. Teach you responsibility. How many out there had their kids in the Boy Scouts? Cub Scouts. Going on up to the Boy Scouts, right? Eagle Scout. I myself was in the Boy Scouts. Nothing happened to me, thank you, Lord. And we certainly think about all the victims where stuff did happen. But the point of this program tonight is to educate and look at the warning signs that were all over the place, the behavior patterns, the way parents responded, the blind trust that they had, okay, in a particular scout leader who was known by the community as this upstanding, great guy, had connections. I think his father was a judge. This thing goes deep. And we want to bring that to you tonight in the hopes that you'll learn something from it, that you'll be shocked by it, disturbed by it, and disturbed to action. Because the reality is that all of these, think about it, the Catholic Church, right? The Boy Scouts, 2 of the largest organizations worldwide, okay? Plus all the teachers. We've had police officers. We've had other church leaders. This is like everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. And we want to bring that to you tonight to help you get educated. Marie T is in the house. Welcome, Marie T. Always the first one here. Always the first one here. Appreciate you, Marie. Marie is the co-director of Protect Your Children Incorporated. And so it's going to be a disturbing show. But what we're going to do is we're going to watch this video on YouTube. I'm going to bring it to you, provide commentary. Pretty sure it's not a copyrighted issue as long as we're doing commentary. See, that's the key. See everybody all the time. They're showing concerts. They're showing other movies. And as long as they're doing commentary, stopping it every now and then seems to be okay. Interesting, right? Quick way to make money, apparently, for some people. So we're going to bring that to you tonight. Got a great Hero Kids segment we're going to bring right up here in just a minute. But I want to remind you that protectyourchildren.org is the website, protectyourchildren.org, or protectfrompredators.org. Another great website. Same one. Protectfrompredators.org, protectyourchildren.org. Great education, awareness, tools to help you keep your kids safe. Quickly, on Monday, we did a live stream. We did a lot of live streaming Monday. Zachary Bernhardt's 32nd birthday. Zachary Bernhardt, as some of you may know if you follow any of our work, is someone who's been missing now for 23 years. He went missing when he was 8 years old, apparently from his mother's bed, reportedly. That's up for debate. In the middle of the night, in a very small window of time, and nobody seems to know anything. But we brought a 6-hour live stream on Monday, basically replaying our investigation summary video of everything, almost everything, that we've come across in the last 3 years of looking into his disappearance. So if you missed that, it's on our YouTube channel. It's on Facebook, Twitter, Rumble. Check it out. Zachary Bernhardt live stream. Then we live streamed again Monday night, and we brought you a special live stream about Zachary Bernhardt as well with other information. And we had a bunch of people tuning in for that, which was great. Last time I checked, I think throughout the day there was probably 250 people that watched the stream. So we're thankful for that. Hopefully people have Googled his name, looked up the case, try to put things together. Let us know. You know, it might be insignificant to you, but you might go, hey, this seems kind of weird. And reach out and let us know. Say, hey, did you guys catch this? Doesn't that seem kind of odd? Maybe we didn't, right? So with you guys watching it out there, listening, putting on your amateur sleuth hat, you might be able to help us put some pieces together and we can bring Zach home. Just because it's 23 years, don't let that get you down. There are cases of kids that went missing for longer than that have been found, right? And if you watch the investigation video, there's a lot there and a lot of reasons we believe that he's still alive, that he's living under an alias, and that other people that were close to him know what happened to him. Do they know where he's at now? It's a possibility. We don't know. But it's something that we looked into. So check that out. Zachary Michael Cole Bernhardt. Monday was his 32nd birthday. We wanted to honor him by doing a whole lot of live streaming. So, Alicia, welcome to the chat. Alicia, glad to see you. Another one of our passionate protectors. Always faithful. She's always there. Appreciate you very much. Let me know how we sound. I know Monday, the stream was a little choppy from what I heard. We tried to take a look at everything, and as far as we're concerned, it's streaming good right now. So hopefully everything sounds and looks good. Let me just check the other chat real quick. Yes, you can text us at 727-349-6941, 727-349-6941. You can text the show, and we'll get your comments on the air. What I'm going to do real quick is check the text here really fast. Let's see. See what we can find here. All right, cool. All right. Both looks and sounds good. Great. That's awesome to hear. Thanks, Marie. You know, it's a crazy thing because you can only do what you can do, right? You can make sure you're not on Wi-Fi. You can make sure that your connection's good, your download speed is good, and all that. So we can do only what we can do here. That's it. So the rest is up to the internet itself. So, all right, let's jump right into the Hero Kids segment. This is really awesome. We found this and thought, got to bring this to you, especially before Christmas. The Hero Kids segment tonight. And we'll get into that right now, and then we'll come back and jump into this Boy Scout chaos. Let's check this out.
Oh, they smell like America. Today's episode is about giving back and about how good can spread. I'm gonna need a bigger bag. Got too much good to give. You're not one of those people who say the world can't be changed. You believe that it's everybody's duty to give the world a reason to dance, right? We have a whole world to make more awesome. People, we need you. We really need you. Kids, people who used to be kids, everybody. But how, Kid President? Everything's terrible. Hey, quiet you. I know, sometimes things can look pretty dark, but there's always light. Light is always still there. In fact, let me show you how good spreads. Yeah, this is my baby right here. Okay, I need you guys to listen up. This is how good spreads. Let's read. How does good spread? Can we make the world brighter? Can we together make somebody's load lighter? Some people think good only spreads if you have lots of money, or a nonprofit who makes a cool video that's slick and really funny. Burp. Does good only spread when you have the right hashtag, or the right bracelet or t-shirt, or give out free tote bags? Does good happen by accident, just out of the blue? Does good only spread when Beyonce allows it to? Queen Bee? She's pretty powerful, but wow, so are you. The world's only seen a glimpse of what you can do. Your heart is so big, but you might feel so small. I'm telling you now, you're thinking as a flaw. Good spreads when good is spread. And that's totally how you live. You share and you love, and you give and give and give. If someone needs lifting, you send them a rope. Your little whispers of love sends out huge gusts of hope. I know what you're thinking. That's a nice little story you're reading, Kid President. But what about me? You wanna know how you can make good things spread in the world? Show up. Show up in the world. You'll be a light. You'll see work to be done on your left and your right. Like Caitlin, a girl who met people in need and started putting inspiring words on dusty old keys. Now she gives people jobs and second chances. She's filling the world with more and more dances. Or Ricky, a funny guy who wanted to share random acts of kindness everywhere. Communities are changing in Cleveland and tons of other places because Ricky just wanted to put smiles on folks' faces. I mean, there's other things too. Ever heard of Socktober? Well, Brad, the guy behind the camera here, before we started all this Q President stuff, he started Socktober. He was just a guy who wanted to make a difference. He was just a sad, pale man.
Hey, come on.
It's just the truth. Well, anyway, he heard socks were one of the most needed but least donated item in homeless shelters, right when they're preparing in the winter months. There are over 600,000 men and women who are homeless in the United States. And some of them were children. He started telling some friends, and then they started telling some friends, and telling schools, and telling churches. And then the next year, grew even bigger. We started this little Kid President project, and I invited some people to help out. October! And you totally have. October drives have happened all over the United States, in every single state, and on every single continent. That's the whole world, y'all. There's just a need. There's good to be done, and we're inviting people to do it. I guess that's just how good spreads. So how will you show up? How will you make things brighter? By loving the people next to you and making your loads lighter. Anger is contagious. Hate and fear, they are too. But I'm not here to spread those, and neither are you. We're here to spread hope and make the world dance. Open your eyes and your heart, and we might stand a chance. Get out of your comfort zone and get out of your head. Get to loving people, and good can't help but be spread. Woo! Oh, don't know about y'all, but I'm ready. Ready to dance.
What an inspiration, right? What an awesome kid. I mean, think about that. Making a huge difference in the world. And you know, I don't know about you guys, but I had never heard of Socktober before. But now that I know, I'll remember it when October comes rolling around. Socktober. How cool is that? It's our Hero Kid segment for this week. Kids just making a difference, man. That's just awesome. Spreading love, spreading hope, spreading joy, trying to make an impact in the world. That's what Hero Kids do. And we want to make sure that every kid can be a hero kid. And we do know that child sexual abuse and physical abuse and drug addiction and all that stuff will destroy kids and stop them from being the hero that they can be. So we want to protect them from those things, which is why we do this show every week. And while we have protectyourchildren.org, protectyourchildren.org, so you can protect your kids from the evil that's out there. All right. Boy Scouts, the Boy Scouts. All right. So as I said before, what we're going to do is we're going to watch this video. I'll be stopping and starting it throughout it for commentary. We're going to play it off of YouTube. There shouldn't be any commercials because it's on a paid account. So that's good. But let's first look at this article. For people that don't know, the Boy Scouts had quite the shakeup a while back. Now, this article here is April 21st, 2023. April 21st, 2023. And the Boy Scouts are out of bankruptcy, and they will pay $2.4 billion to sex abuse survivors. $2.4 billion. Let me get myself out so we can make this a little bigger. There we go. So what's basically happening here is that over 82,000 victims came forward claiming that they were sexually abused by the Boy Scouts. And I better watch my language because YouTube will censor this as they usually do. So they came forward, and there was a whole thing where Boy Scouts first filed bankruptcy so they can get out of having to pay it right away. And then the judge got involved, and So now there's a settlement. The Boy Scouts of America will establish a $2.4 billion fund for those in organization who were victims of sexual abuse as it emerges out of Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The funds will support 82,500 people. Let's just think about that for a minute. 82,500 child victims in one organization. Let that sink in for a minute. And as part of a reorganization plan ordered by a court in August 2021, an insurer representing the organization said it would contribute $800 million to the fund in December of 2021. Additionally, new measures will support survivors and prevent abuse in the future, such as background checks for all staff and volunteers, mandatory youth training, and a complete ban on one-to-one interactions with children, including in person, online, or via text or calls, the Boy Scouts said on Wednesday. Now, that's the good news that, they're making some changes, okay? Well, way too late. This is a significant milestone for the Boy Scouts of America as we emerge from a 3-year financial restructuring process with a global resolution approved with overwhelming support of more than 85% of the survivors involved in the case. A survivor will also have a seat on the organization's board, and any allegation of abuse must be reported to law enforcement. Well, duh. Jeez. The Boy Scouts also have a 24/7 hotline, an email address for reporting suspected abuse or inappropriate behavior. The Boy Scouts of America, based in Irving, Texas, sought bankruptcy protection in February 2020 in an effort to halt hundreds of individual lawsuits and create a compensation fund for thousands of men who were molested as youngsters by scoutmasters or other leaders. Unbelievable, right? So 82,000. Yeah, Alicia said great parents too on the kid president. Yeah, absolutely. So 82,000. Now, our first thought when we heard this was like, I think we reported on this, but now that this video came out, it gives a very good detailed explanation of what the heck was going on inside that organization and how the organization itself knew that kids were in danger and covered it up. They shouldn't even be an organization anymore. That's what our opinion is. How they're even emerging from this is unbelievable, if you ask me. But it is what it is right now. So let's jump into this. It is long, which is why we started the show at 8 o'clock tonight. Don't want to keep you up all night. We started earlier. Usually it's 9 p.m. So we started at 8 p.m. tonight so we can jump into this. Alicia says it infuriates me. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I first watched over this video earlier, and it's mind-blowing. It really is. It's just there's no words. There's really no words of how people turned their backs on these children. I mean, parents were just signing their kids up, sending them to these Boy Scouts of America, thinking they're going to become better men, leaving them alone with these scoutmasters, going on overnight camping trips, going on week-long camping trips without the parents, not enough adults watching them. All this abuse was taking place all over the country, all over the world, and it was being hidden. So it's like the Boy Scouts of America had just a continual stream of just boys coming in, because it had that reputation that people just started trusting that, hey, they're a great organization. That could never happen there. And that's the first mistake. Do you accuse everybody? No, of course not. But you always have to be careful. Anytime you're going to have adults spending one-to-one time with kids, even if you say, well, no, they're with the whole troop, right? But do you know what happens on that trip? Are they always with the troop? Are they being pulled aside? All those questions always need to be asked, no matter who the organization is or who the person is. It has to be. All right. Hopefully this is going to work.
I grew up in a prison, a little prison. And I can just remember my mind My mind just me trying to go to another place and trying to escape the reality of what was going on. And one of the things he always told us: if you have a problem you can't solve it, you kill it. I did not want them to die.
In 1997, Lone Oak, a small town in Arkansas, was shaken by horrific news. 20-year-old Heath Stocks, a former Boy Scout, was arrested for the murder of his parents and sister. But that wasn't the full story. Something was left out, a secret that Heath held onto for years. What happened here? I'm a journalist, a father, and a former scout. All of these things have brought me here to Lone Oak to look for answers.
This is Christmas 91. So let's start with Christmas 91, if that's okay with you, and then we'll come back to the rest of these.
Yeah. And we're going to pray this works since it's an old VCR.
Let's see.
Here's my mama's deadly cooking.
Now that's what you call a Christmas feast.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, beans.
And that's Barbara. That's his daddy.
Is that Joe?
That's Joe.
5 years after this Christmas dinner, on the night of January 17, 1997, Joe Stocks, his wife Barbara, and their 18-year-old daughter Heather were all shot dead.
I think Joe loves Barbara beyond belief. I'm not so sure that he always knew how to express it. Oh, that's me. That's Heather. Joe and Barbara had Heather and Heath. Heath and Heather were basically my kids because I didn't have any.
And he opened the package.
That's Heath.
That's Heath.
This is what his socks looks like on Christmas morning. Let me see your legs, hey.
From the outside, they were very loving. Give the kids anything that you think will help them be a better person. Make sure you take them to church. Try to live that life, live a Christian life. It's Christmas. Everybody loved everybody else that day. This is what I thought probably the rest of my life would be, and I can look at it with a smile on my face to say, I had a little bit of it. It was wonderful. They were good people, and God gave me a gift when He let me have them.
What happened to this family? Where did it start to fall apart?
Okay. This is what's got the whole world in it, right? Well, the baby picture of Heath. That's Heath.
That's Heath?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
There he is in his finery. She was definitely his protector.
Why did he need a protector?
Well, apparently he felt very threatened by his daddy because he wasn't going to be the perfect child. He did kid things and made kid mistakes that were unacceptable to Joe.
And this is him here.
I think so, yeah. He had some learning disabilities. He was ADHD.
So he's getting in trouble at school, maybe?
Or not getting work done.
Okay.
Because of this, the Stocks family looked elsewhere for help.
So they see Heath maybe as irresponsible, and
Yeah.
Jack is someone who steps in and says he can help him be more
Oh,
responsible.
yeah,
and
who can help him to learn to be more responsible? They ask friends. Oh, yeah, he does a really good job with the Boy Scouts.
By the time he was 8 years old, Heath was already in the Scouts, where the family's good friend, Jack Walls, had long been a volunteer.
Troop 103, that's the
Yeah.
troop that Jack was the
That's
troop
that's Heath
leader.
and
Jack was so magic. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he could sit here and talk to you, and you'd just think the world of him. You would just think the world of him. He was a good person, good man, good scout leader.
You know, Jack's from a prominent family. Everybody trusted him. When their kids got in trouble or needed advice on how to manage them, they came to Jack.
he was the savior for Heath. He was the intervention that would help Heath become what Joe and Barbara wanted him to be. That's their push
These
card
are the
thing.
push card things.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to be one of Jack's boys. Anytime that people had problems with their boys, Jack always said that he could put them in the Scouts and I'll mold them into outstanding young men that he could be proud of. From the very beginning, he set himself apart as seeing things in me my own father couldn't see.
Jack Walls was a beloved figure in Lone Oak, particularly for his volunteer work with the Boy Scouts of America, where he was a scoutmaster from the early 70s into the 90s.
Very nice, came from an old family, a family of money, a family of wealth. They owned a lot of property, a lot of land, just good people, just really good people.
His father was an appointed judge.
Okay, so right there, what we see already is this was a prominent figure in the community. Everybody automatically trusted him, right? Had money. His dad was a judge. So nobody even thought twice. First mistake, right? They just, oh, he's got a great reputation, such a great guy. So nobody thought even for a second anything about the guy, right? They just trusted blindly. And that's the first mistake. Now we know that 90% of abuse victims, right, know the perpetrator. They know the perpetrator. And nobody wants to think about that, right? No family wants to think about maybe it's someone in the family or maybe it's a close family friend. Right? Nobody wants to think about that. So they just push it far from their mind. And they don't even let it enter their mind that it's a possibility. But as we're going to see here in a little bit, this particular child, and we're going to hear from others, started exhibiting signs that showed something was wrong, but nobody would believe it because this guy was so prominent and he would never do anything like that. It's really unbelievable.
He had other relatives who were both state Supreme Court judges and a federal judge.
He was voted in as the man of the year. He had a lot of pull.
Look at this. Man of the Year award went to Charles Jack Walls III, who cited Walls for his Boy Scout work.
I had a lot of pictures of Wade, and I had his Boy Scout and Eagle Scout shirt with everything, but this was the banner he was wearing the day he became a scout, an Eagle Scout. And we were very proud of him, and he was very proud of his what he had done, his accomplishments. So it was a good day. It was a very good day.
Karen Knox and her family lived next to Jack Walls, who was related to them by marriage. Her son was in Jack's Boy Scout troop, along with Heath Stux.
How old was Wade when he joined the Scouts?
Probably 6, 7.
Why did Wade become a Scout? What was he
Because of
attracted to?
Jack. Jack was his uncle. He encouraged it. I mean, our kids were, and he had 3 daughters, and we had 3 children. They were all about the same age. We went to the beach with them in the summer. We had family gatherings. You know, it was just normal as it could be.
And was Jack always a troop leader?
Yes, yes. When Wade was 5, being in education, I noticed there was things about Wade that just wasn't on the up and up. He was attention deficit. First of all, he was on medication, and then he was diagnosed with dyslexia. So we knew it was going to be hard. And then about the 3rd grade, things fell apart. At school, Wade could no longer play sports and get along with anybody. He did not respect any authority. I mean, it was just constant turmoil with him. Wade would get so upset that sometimes he would run away. He would run. And Jack would smooth everything over and everything would be just fine. We lived right across the street from Jack. It was probably 50 feet, maybe. There was always scouts over there. Always scouts, always boys, because he was interesting, he was fun.
In Lone Oak, like in towns and cities across the U.S., children join the Boy Scouts to learn outdoor skills and build character.
Being outside and being part of the Scouts, which encouraged me and helped me develop self-esteem. There was a space for me to exist and thrive in. Anything that had to do with Scouts was happening on the Walls farm. That's where it happened.
In the early 90s, Jack Walls would host campouts on the family farm with the scouting troop.
What was your early impression of Jack Walls?
He was really involved in Scouts and loved the program. My brothers were both in Boy Scouts, and I started as a Cub Scout and worked my way up.
What'd you like about it? What'd you learn from it?
It gave me a skill set to make me a more well-rounded boy, to be more prepared to go out and be independent, to be the best you can be, whether you're in a group setting or individually, to be trustworthy and loyal and honest and helpful, friendly, courteous, and kind. I mean, all the principles of the Scout Law.
But when Jack crossed that threshold, it changed everything for me.
In 1992, 4 years before the Stocks murders, Doug was invited to join a campout led by Jack Walls.
Can you tell me about that day? How that went down?
So we had this camp out to get to know everyone. And we went out there that night. Now I'm going to 16 and I'm going as one of the leaders, Scouts. I'm going to be in charge of a group of boys. I'm going to be helping Jack with that. And that's what I was there for, is to get to know the kids that I would be going with, get to know their personalities, well, supposedly. There was no organization like a normal Boy Scouting event. He offered alcohol to me at one point, wine. He did this several times that night, and he started telling boys to go to bed that night. And that struck me as odd.
You're saying he had a plan?
Yeah. And another boy picked up on it. He excused himself and said he was going to bed, which left me at the campfire with Jack. And Jack started the conversation off with who I was dating, how far we'd gone, what we'd done. But then it started taking a different tone of, well, do you want to do this? I could help you with this. Or who are you thinking about tonight? And he said, lay down, take.
Okay, so there we go. There's the alcohol, right? To get the defenses down, to make it a little bit easier to take advantage, right? We all kind of know that a predator will do that. Predators always have a plan. We've talked about that. There's always a plan. Part of this scumbag's plan was an adult will start talking to the child about sexual things. You know, say, hey, you like this girl? How far have you gone? Try to get them to start thinking about it, right? So that it brings up feelings, right? Try to get their hormones going a little bit. And that's what this Jack Walls guy was doing, trying to get that conversation going, try to get the child thinking about stuff. And then from there, he thinks he can take the leap. And we'll see what happens next.
Take a load off, you know. And he came and laid down with his feet at my head and kept the conversation going, but kept it in a sexual tone. It bothered me. But when he put his hands on me, he reached for my belt and started trying to unbuckle my pants. And I just told him no. So I'm not into that. It's not my thing. And he tried to play it off for a few seconds, and I don't remember exactly what he said, but he was brazen enough to say, well, how about you do me? And I said no. And I got up and I left. I went to the truck and I told my friend that was with me, and he didn't seem shocked at all. I got home and my dad noticed my attitude and my demeanor and asked me to sit down and talk to him. So I sat down and he said, what's going on? And I said, I can't tell you. And he said, why? And I said, I will tell you if you'll make me a promise. And he said, what's that? And I said, you have to promise me that you won't do anything to go to jail. He said, just tell me. I said, I can't do it without your word. I need you to promise me you won't do anything to go to jail. He said, okay, you have my word. And I told him what happened. My dad said, I'm glad you made me make that promise, because otherwise I would have reacted.
And then what did your dad do?
He called Jack up. He told Jack in a very colorful way that he would step down from Boy Scouts. He would resign and not have anything to do with Boy Scouts ever again. And that if he did this, he wouldn't press charges.
Jack Walls wrote a letter to Doug's father, Cletus, acknowledging he did something wrong that night. In it, he says, there's a great amount of trust placed in a man who works with young people as I did, and I violated it. He apologized and assured Doug's father that he would step down from the Boy Scouts. But that's not what happened.
My dad did report him to the local council office, and they made him ineligible at that point because of the accusation.
Your dad reports him to the Boy Scouts. And he's put on the list. But then that's not enough. He decides to press charges.
So my dad went to the chief of police. We wanted a public admission of guilt. It was never about the money.
After that, Jack Walls was charged with delinquency of a minor and assault. He was put on trial in 1994. This meant the Hogans would be going up against far more than just one man.
Little Lone Oak is so caught up in all of the worst tales you can read about, from Southern literature of interlinks between families and who's rich and who's got the money and who's got the power, and this person is connected to this person who's connected to that person, and everybody's kin to everybody, and you have to be careful what you say to who.
What did you think of Doug Hogan at the time of the trial?
I thought it was a farce. Now, this is coming from Jack, though. He's out to get money. He was out to get money from the Wallses. That's what we were told. But we didn't know Doug Hogan. That's all I know. That's what I was told, and that's what I believed. We as a family went to court to testify with Jack. And I was on the witness stand, and I said, this just can't be. It cannot be. There were politicians there. His dad had brought all the state politicians in, and of course, that little boy, it was proven that Jack came out looking like a saint that day. And we just couldn't believe that that child would say something like that. We just couldn't believe it.
Several of Jack's scouts also supported him during the trial.
My dad told me, he said, you tell them what Jack tells you to say, that I've never seen Jack do anything to anybody.
My attorney warned me that oftentimes in these type of cases that the victim is put on trial, that their character and integrity and things from their past are brought in to explain that they're not honest, that they're the bad person. And the victim is blamed for what happens instead of the perpetrator who actually did something wrong. I had people leave notes in my locker at school that knew nothing about Boy Scouts and what had gone on, that called me fag, homo, queer bait. I mean, these are boys that had nothing to do with Boy Scouts, but the stigma of what had happened, it was at the time abusive, but it was gay bashing. I was queer bait. And they picked on me about it, but they never directly did it to my face. It was always behind my back or in subtle ways, leaving notes or things.
What picture did they paint of him on the stand?
He was a good, honest man from Lone Oak that went to church and was a good leader, and they couldn't see him ever participating in something that I was accusing him of. And I was the one that was perverted, dirty, and creating this situation so that my family could sue his family.
And in that case, who prevails?
In the criminal case?
Mm-hmm.
Jack did. He was acquitted of all charges.
Did it act?
Unbelievable, right? This is just absolutely shocking. And the thing is, it doesn't matter if someone goes to church, right? Or if they're married or they're single or they're black or they're white or they're young or they're old. You always have to keep your eyes open, right? But this guy apparently had everybody convinced that he was a saint. Never did anything wrong. And as we're going to see here in a little bit, he had threatened a lot of the kids. Threatened to hurt them. And that's why they stood up for him. But the fact that he walked off scot-free on that, it's unbelievable.
Actually go into court 2 different times? Or did it only go for the civil?
No, it was settled out of court in civil. Boy Scouts couldn't have it go to trial. And for legal reasons, I am limited as to what I can say about the civil case.
Why are you limited?
Because I signed a non-disclosure agreement at 16 years old. Scouts of America and Jack Walls.
Jack Walls lost his registration with the Boy Scouts of America shortly after Doug's father reported him to the local Scout Council. Their file on Walls makes it clear why. It lists the details of Doug's allegations.
The Boy Scouts became responsible the minute they knew what and who Jack was.
We didn't hear anything about the Scouts not approving of Jack anymore. We didn't know anything about that. The only side we heard was Jack's.
How did he
continued to lead scouting events after he lost that registration.
He shouldn't have been involved in scouting at all.
And they were okay with hanging Jack out to dry, but they had to protect him at the same time, because to completely expose him or let him be exposed would mean they would have to admit that he was doing this within their organization, and they just couldn't allow that. It was all about image, marketing. We're safe, we're good, we're wholesome, nothing to see here. They wanted to keep their brand. It wasn't about safety, the safety of children. It was about keeping a clean reputation and image for their organization so that more boys would come. I think that case just left me disappointed that there was no justice in the world. That regardless of how much truth I told and how much I tried to expose Jack for who he really was, people are manipulative, and it's a manipulative system. And I didn't realize the system that I was fighting. I was fighting a prominent family. I'm fighting an entire national organization. They're gonna make sure they've got a really solid story before they walk into that courtroom, where all I had to give was the truth as a 16-year-old kid.
Mine was one incident, one attempt, and I shut it down. And 30 years later, we're talking about one night that could have ended so much pain and suffering when I did report it, but it didn't.
I can't help but think how much I wish my father had made a stand for me like Doug's father was making a stand for him. I was always getting my ass beat for something that I had done wrong or failed to do right. He had beat my ass until he was tired, and beating me wasn't making me better. The part of me that craved the attention that my father denied needed what Jack gave me emotionally. He had always said that he had loved me like a son. You know, he became a safe place. And then, in the midst of that, he started doing what he did. Most of the sexual acts happened as Boy Scouts. It was gradual, it was over time, it was severe, and it was hundreds of times. It went on for so long, and in so many ways. I mean, he violated this in his truck, he violated this in his house, he violated this on the farm.
Don't just stand there like a dummy.
If I said I didn't want to go on a camp out, or if I said I didn't want to go to Jack's house, then I'm getting roughed up by my dad, who says that man has done so much for you. You don't appreciate shit that anybody does for you, and slap me around. He said, you get your ass up there and you show Jack Walls how much you appreciate. You do whatever he tells you to do.
Push that way a little bit every now and then.
And so in my mind, I'm in his house, and he's doing these things to me, and I can hear my dad say, you do what he tells you to do. You should appreciate what he's telling you to do. He's molding you into someone
And that's the other thing. Here he is saying, I don't want to go to his house. There's a warning. If a child stops wanting to be around somebody, there has to be a reason for that. But this dad was like, oh, no. He's a great guy. You go over there and you just stand up and talk to him because he's just you show him how much you appreciate him. It's the worst thing a parent can do. And you combine that with what the child was going through at home, and you make it a recipe for disaster. I mean, here's the child saying, I don't want to go to this person's house. You think dad would be like, why? What's going on? How come you don't want to go there no more? This kid's dad failed. Failed.
To be proud of. Where do you go in a situation like that?
He started molesting Heath when Heath was 10 years old. And I think that he had that kind of influence over him.
Police detective Charles Peckett moved to Lone Oak in the late 90s. It wasn't long before Jack Walls came to his attention.
I had gone to a small town hoping that I was going to retire and it was going to be quiet and it was going to be just kind of laid back job. And that's not what it turned into. 3 weeks after being there in Lone Oak, I end up with this case of these sexual abuses. It's hard to say that I've had a case come up like this one in my career.
How many boys do you think Walls ended up abusing?
Somewhere in the neighborhood of 50.
How many Boy Scouts do you think you interviewed?
I said over 50. My victim witness coordinator said it was closer to 100 that we knew about.
In all, Jack Walls is believed to have abused boys for at least 3 decades.
How could that stay secret for so long in such a small place?
The children, the young men, told me they were afraid of the family because of their power, wealth, and influence.
I think that's the key word is the influence that he had on them kids. I think that is the key word of this whole thing. He had his thumb on these boys, and he could get them to do what he wanted them to do.
I get no affection, no affirmation, no compliments at home. My father slapped me so hard that, I had blood in my mouth, and he knocked me down, and he picked me up, and he beat me and whipped me so long that I actually peed and pooped on myself.
How old were you?
7 or 8, maybe. But those are the things that I shared with Jack. He became a place where I could share those things and get them out. And, that trust, that bond that we had. But I also have to endure sexual abuse. And so there was no winning situation. And knowing that if I don't do what he tells me to do and he complains to my dad, what's going to happen when I get home afterwards?
In a town of 4,000 people, 50 boys is a lot of boys. How is this not known?
If something happened to me, would I tell somebody else about it? Probably not. Not at 10 years old or 15 years old. Am I going to say something? Probably not.
So, reminds me of a situation that happened some years back. I was getting some flyers made up at a local print place, and this customer was standing next to me waiting for his order, and he looked at the flyer and he said, "Oh," he goes, "it's great that you guys do that protection work." And he goes, "I'll tell you what, if anybody ever touched my son or my daughter, I'd kill them." And I looked at the dad in horror, and he said, "What?" And I said, "I hope you don't tell your kids that, because you tell your child that you're going to kill the person that hurts them, and now they're never going to tell you, because they're afraid now of losing you too." Remember earlier on, he said, "I'll tell you, Dad, if you make one promise that you won't do something to get yourself put in jail." So parents have to approach this with a level head and say, you can tell me, and I'm not going to go kill the person. I'm not going to go get myself arrested. Because the child's going to have that fear of losing the parent in addition to everything. Now with this kid, his dad was already beating him. So he was afraid to say it to him because he wouldn't get believed. And like he said, what if Jack went and called the dad and said, "Hey, your son said this about me"? The dad would beat the kid up more. Wrong way to approach it. absolutely the wrong way.
The Boy Scouts as an organization, how would you describe their level of interest and of transparency in dealing with the Jack Walls case?
The Boy Scouts gave me nothing. I had requested information from the Boy Scouts myself. They never got back with me. I left a message on their phone telling them who I was, what I was doing, and they still didn't call me back.
I joined the Scouts when I was 8 years old. I was asked, like millions of others across America, to commit to the Scout Law, a series of character traits said to define the good Scout. Among them, trustworthiness, loyalty, obedience. These paintings by artist Norman Rockwell came to define that ideal image of the American Boy Scout. It's an image I grew up with, an image of the Boy Scout as incorruptible, synonymous in American culture with unimpeachable honesty and innocence.
The Boy Scouts are in the business of selling an image of wholesomeness, safety, trustworthiness, the Scout Code.
Attorney Tim Kosnoff is representing men who claim to have been abused as children by Jack Walls. Together, they're taking the Boy Scouts of America to court for what they say is its responsibility in that abuse.
In many of our files, we see these perpetrators had a history that was known to the Boy Scouts for decades. Walls was one of them. But we see this over and over and over again.
For more than a century, the Boy Scouts of America have kept a growing list of files. They include the names of thousands of scouting volunteers and staff accused of child sexual abuse, including Jack Walls. But that information has not always been shared with authorities.
If it were to be publicly revealed that they had this dirty little secret that wasn't actually little at all, but was massive, what would that do to the faith and confidence of parents who are considering whether to entrust their boys to the care of this system?
Because there's secrets that they don't want shared. In the name of the Boy Scouts of America. So
Michael Johnson was the director of youth protection at the Boy Scouts of America for more than a decade.
if you look at it, the national headquarters professionals, I'm talking about the very top, their interests align more with perpetrator scoutmasters than they do with the victims and survivors in these lawsuits.
The Boy Scouts have said that when they keep the information in their files confidential, it is to protect the privacy of victims, witnesses, and the falsely accused.
The problem when any institution has that power or ability to investigate its own and maintain records on its own, tell me the institution where that has worked out to help victims of sexual abuse. Secrecy surrounding the ineligible volunteer files benefits no one except for the perpetrator and those like the Boy Scouts of America that has interests, probably financial interests, civil interests, in that information not getting out.
It was a machine that reinforced the code of secrecy, the code of silence. And that was absolutely not to protect the children. It was to protect the organization.
The Boy Scouts is, in fact, the perfect petri dish for pedophilia. The child is in a place where there are not other adults that they can call out to, and they're intimidated by the fact that this organization is so important. It's so valuable to the creation of character that nobody would believe them if they spoke out against the scoutmaster that's sexually assaulting them.
The depth of his depravity was hard to imagine. He was in the military, where I think he honed some of his skills that he tried to teach the scouts. taught them to evade light sensors outside so they could start stalking people they didn't like or people that Jack told them to.
He did ask me to go on some recons with him in the middle of the night.
Recon? What
Yeah.
was he reconning?
He had a rental house, and he had some people that were in it who hadn't been paying their rent.
This man, who chose to remain anonymous, claims he was sexually abused by his scoutmaster, Jack Walls, a decade before the Doug Hogan trial.
He would come and pick me up at like 2 o'clock in the morning and take me around and drop me off down the block and have me go scout out the rental house to see if there was anybody home.
He programmed the scouts through teaching them to shoot. He was a supervisor at Remington Arms. He had ammunition and took that, taught them to shoot.
We used to go out into the woods, go camping, have fun. We'd shoot guns, shoot turtles, shoot snakes. We'd blow up beaver dams with dynamite. That was always fun. You know, getting to use explosives as somebody who's, 13, 14 years old. Who wouldn't enjoy doing something like that?
He played head games with the kids, with the young men. I'm going to give you alcohol. I'm going to give you pornographic literature. I'm your friend. I'm going to teach you to hunt. I'm going to teach you about sex. And then I'm going to teach you to kill.
What did you hear about the bounty? Cut my brake lines, fight me, kill my dad, anything to silence us and make us go away.
And he encouraged them to come after you.
I'm sure. Heath Stocks pretty much admitted it.
That Jack put a bounty on you.
Yeah.
He wanted us to follow Cletus Hogan, which is Doug's father. And, he had this plan of me and Wade Knox. He wanted us to catch Cletus, use a stun gun on him, put him in his car, pour gas on him, and then he wanted to light him on fire and watch him burn to death.
They were told to kill Doug and his dad by Jack Walls, but they never did, but they were supposed to do it.
Did you ever feel threatened?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, I got threatened. Oh, yes.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I sent a letter.
What did the letter say?
Something about my office was sitting right by a window. Something about sitting by that window. I wouldn't sit by that window so much.
Charles Peckett received.
Talk about a pure psychopath. This guy, military background, the sexual abuse, the violence, scaring the heck out of these kids. I keep coming back to the point of, if the scouts kept these files for as long as they did, how are they not being charged criminally? How are they still an organization? I mean, I guess you have to have particular people that you can charge, but somebody was hiding these files. They said they had thousands of names, thousands of reports of abuse by scout leaders and volunteers. And they kept that hidden and didn't report it. How is somebody not being charged? How is a whole lot of people not being charged for this? Sure, the victims are getting monetary, but all those people that hid this for so long, where's the justice in that? We could go down another road, but that's for another show. Why are they not being charged? This Jack Walls is a pure psychopath. Pure psychopath.
Gave these threats as he was investigating the scope of the abuse committed by Jack Walls.
I imagine that must have been a shocking moment when you're looking at these cases and you find out one of the boys is Heath Stocks, and you're like, why does that name sound familiar? You weren't expecting him to be involved in this.
Yes, but I waited till at the end to go down and interview Heath because I knew that whatever he said is going to be tainted by the fact of the 3 murders.
The night
Mm-hmm.
in January,
Mm-hmm.
you guys had been to dinner?
I think we went to a buffet in Jacksonville and had a lovely time. Heath was the person that he had been when he was at his best. He was the ideal young man to be. He was personable. He laughed. But he came in, he visited, he said, I got to go back to class or got to do something. And he went ahead and left and was just the nicest, most pleasant. You know, if you had a final memory, that's what you'd want to have with a relative. And then 2:00 in the morning, they came and banged on the door, woke me up, and said, Joe, Barbara, and Heather have been shot.
Because 3 of them have been shot. Where's Heath?
I think he might have told us he was going back to Arkadelphia that night, and so I didn't. We may have even said, "Well, does Heath know?"
Somebody called us at 5:00 in the morning. One of the neighbors out there.
What'd they say?
We were still in the bed. It was on a Saturday morning and said, we just wanted y'all to know that the whole Stocks family has been murdered and Heath is nowhere to be found.
The next thing I remember is being at the courthouse and them telling us that they had arrested Heath.
He's sorry for what you did. Stand back. Thing you'd like to say? What's bottled up inside? Why did you kill your parents? Are you sorry?
This is a free call from an inmate at Maximum Security Unit.
Hey, Heath.
Hey, Josh.
Can you tell me about what happened in January 1997?
I've been home from college. I had been home for several months at that point, and had been looking for a job. I hadn't been able to find one. So mom and dad had told Jack to come over and see if he could talk sense into me and encourage me. And of course, his idea of encouragement, as he had all through the Boy Scouts, is to bring over alcohol and a porn tape and essentially assault me in my home. A short time after that, my sister and I had been sitting in the dining room, and then we started to share about Jack and what Jack had been doing. And then Mom came home.
How did you tell your mom and sister? Do you remember the actual words you used?
I said that he'd been sexually molesting me. And I don't know what caused the shift from confessing to them to confessing to him. And I think it was me sharing and then nothing happening. And then this belief, a realization that I might lose him. The only source of affection and affirmation and attention that I was getting. And, it's so shameful to make that admission. But that's what drove me to his house. And it made me confess that I had told my mom and sister.
How did he react to that?
It was the most angry I'd ever seen him. Very angry, very rageful, very abusive verbally. He told me that I had betrayed him, that I had violated something sacred, that he loved me like a son, and that he never thought that I would ever be someone that would do something like that. And proceeded to put me through an act so depraved, it broke me. It broke me completely. And so he told me, he said, this is the problem. I caused this problem. I need to fix the problem. And, one of the things he'd always told us, if you have a problem you can't solve it, you kill it. And, he'd use that logic with the Owens. And he used that same logic with my family. And so I left, and I didn't do what he told me to do. Until he showed up and he made me. I came home after going out to eat with my grandparents, and the house was ransacked.
Heath maintains Jack Walls was at his house and had staged it to look like a robbery gone bad.
And it was going to happen. I could either participate and be a part of it, or I could die right there with him. Heather came home first from the game. She came in, she looked around the house, and she asked me if we'd been robbed. And I begged her to leave, to go, to get out. In my mind, I was thinking I was going to, help her get out.
So now we see another failure on the part of the parents, right? Where they wouldn't believe him. They wouldn't do anything about it. He starts exhibiting all this crazy behavior and everything, and then what do? They call Jack, right? So now he's being basically prepared to kill his family on behalf of Jack. I mean, this is one twisted psychopath. And it's weird because he said he just got back from meeting with his grandparents, right? And they said that was the most normal they had ever seen him. So he was just happy and he was himself, knowing that when they got home, the unthinkable was about to happen.
Jack's in the living room sitting on the couch. Then I see the car pull up, the van pull up. Mom and Dad are home. Mom comes in. I see her go in the kitchen. I'm in the living room. The lights out. She starts screaming, and she screams, "Joe!" And my dad turns around and looks at me and screams, and started at me. And so I took a step back and I shot. And he kept coming, and I shot again. And he fell, and he kept trying to crawl and get to me. And I shot again. And then I'm standing there. And I see Dad, he's laid down. There's Mom, there's Heather, there's Mom.
Heather, Barbara, and Joe were all killed that night.
I didn't want to die. I didn't want them to die. I just wanted him to feel the pain he made me feel, but I was never good enough for him.
The next day, in an interview with police, Heath never mentions the presence of Jack Walls or the abuse he endured. He confesses to having ransacked the house himself and to shooting his father.
Heath, did you shoot your dad?
Yes.
What happened with your mom and Heather?
I just saw him and I just shot.
They got hit while you were shooting?
love them.
Take your time.
I love you so much.
Heath Stocks was 20 years old at the time of the murders. Facing a trial and the possibility of the death penalty, he pled guilty to killing both his parents and his sister and was sentenced to life without parole. But today, Heath maintains that he killed only his father and that another former scout abused by Jack Walls pulled the trigger on Heather and Barbara. Charles Peckett arrived in Lone Oak a few months after the family was killed, and Heath was sent to prison.
When you took the job, were you aware of the Stocks family murders?
Yes. I knew about the Joe and his wife and Heather, and but when I found out about all of that, I knew that there was more to it, and nobody ever really said why he did it. Nobody ever gave a motive why he did this, and I would ask that why he did that, and nobody would ever tell me.
At the time of the Stocks murders, Jack Walls' abuse of the scouts of Lone Oak was still a secret.
Because while he was in jail in Lone Oak, I called Jack and said, I know y'all were really close. Would you go down and talk to Heath?
You thought you would take care of Heath?
Yeah. Yeah, I did. And I think he told him that he would help, take care of it. So he really trusted Jack in all situations. And
this was after he had already tried to tell everybody what happened? The response is, we'll call Jack and he'll come and help? I mean, what's going on with the family here? What's going on with these people? Totally mind blown.
And obviously was, all a lie to start with.
He did so brainwash Heath that Heath believed that Jack loved him and that his father didn't. That Jack would do anything for him. He thought when Jack told him to kill his parents and his sister became involved and was also killed, that Jack would get him out of jail.
I was living in a world that wasn't real. And it was one that Jack orchestrated and one that Jack molded and made. It was a nightmarish place. Without the Boy Scouts, none of it would have happened, because Jack needed the structure, the organization of the Scouts to do what he did for as long as he did. The organization of scouting, the institution of scouting, is what allowed Jack to set up this filtering system, this grooming system, this isolation system where he could assault us. He could, in effect, manipulate, condition, and sexually assault us. Our parents didn't have any problems out of us anymore because we were so withdrawn. We didn't even want people touching us. Do whatever we have to do, and that is to be a good scout and to do what Jack tells us to do. And for me, I can't help but blame the Boy Scouts because Jack had done this for decades. We're not talking about something that happened a few years. He was able to use the Boy Scouts as a pedophile to groom and sexually abuse people, and for decades.
It was in the months after the Stocks family murders that Jack's abuse of the boys of Lone Oak started to come out.
Wade's senior year, he fell completely apart. I mean, he absolutely fell completely apart. I saw pain, a lot of pain in Wade's eyes, a lot of pain. But when you don't know what you're fighting, you don't know how to handle it.
For years, Karen had wondered why her son Wade was so troubled.
It was just constant turmoil till I did not know what was going on. I couldn't fit, I knew there was so much evil somewhere, but I could not figure out where it was coming from.
She finally found out just before he started his senior year of high school.
He took a gun out of our safe and brought Jack to us at gunpoint. He still had the gun to do at Jack's head, and he said, "Now you tell my mom and my dad what you've done to me all of my life." And Jack said, "It's all true." I looked at that man, and Josh, I didn't even know him. He looked like evil. He was sweating profusely. He didn't even look human to me anymore.
That was the day Karen found out Jack Walls had been abusing her son.
This is us years ago,
Oh,
and
yeah.
you can tell he's sick there. You can tell the dark eyes. You know, when you find out what's been wrong with your child for the last 13 years in one split second, that's pretty powerful. After it was all over with, he said, "Y'all were supposed to die that day." And he said, "I couldn't do it." He was supposed to kill all of us because we were putting things together.
In the months leading up to this moment, things had gotten worse and worse for Wade.
Jack had taken Wade out to the farm, dug a grave and buried him in the ground. Wade. Jack buried Wade and then dug him up and said, "If you ever tell anybody what I've done to you or anything, talk about this in any way," he said, "I will bury you out here again alive and nobody will ever find you. Or I will bury one of your friends out here alive and tell them you did it." Now, wouldn't that scare you?
Now, that's the other thing that we go over in the guidelines that are available on our website, protectyourchildren.org. You got to reassure the kids that if there's any threats, that they will be protected. Well, they said they're going to kill you. Don't worry, I'll be safe. They said they're going to come after me. Don't worry, we won't let you out of our sight. Predators said they're going to kill the dog, kill the cat. Don't worry, we'll make sure we're around the animals all the time. Reassure the kids that if they ever have to tell you when they're scared that they're going to get hurt, that they'll be safe. Because this guy clearly had to put the fear of death into multiple kids, tons of kids. And parents have to reassure their kids that no matter what happens, they're going to be safe. They'll be protected.
Later, Wade would tell his mother details of what Jack Walls had put him through over the years.
He looked at me one day and he was so serious. He was so hurt. He said, "Did you and Daddy give Jack permission to rape me and perform all that stuff on me?" And I said, "Oh my God, no. No." He said, "Jack said you knew all about it and it was fine with y'all." And he said every time he'd rape me, he'd say, "You know, it's okay because your mom and dad says it's okay." This was when he was little.
The Knox family started everything. I mean, as far as getting this investigation going. I would talk to one child or one young man, and they would give me names of other people that were victims. And then I would go to those people and they would give me other names. And it just kind of blossomed out like that, that everybody knew what was going on. but it was a secret. So it was there. I just had to go out and find it. We had enough charges, enough evidence to get affidavits for warrants and had him arrested and charged with it.
Betty Dickey was appointed special prosecutor in the case against Jack Walls.
In all the cases that you ever prosecuted, where does this one stack up? Where does Jack Walls stack up?
It was the worst. It was the worst as far as what a human being did to not just one but many others, as far as destroying their lives.
I do know this. This is what I feel in my heart. I think it took family to bring him down. Because if a family member will make these kind of accusations, by God, it's true. It's true. I think it took Wade. Bring Jack Walls to justice. Because he was never believed, no victim was ever believed before this happened.
I felt vindicated. I enjoyed watching Jack squirm publicly because he was trapped. There was no way out.
I have no comment.
Jack Walls said nothing and showed no emotion as he left the Lonoke County Courthouse.
Jack Walls was sentenced to life in prison on 6 counts of raping a minor, including Wade Knox and Heath Stocks, who was brought to Lonoke for the verdict.
I'm just glad that they put him away for the rest of his life, so he won't have a chance to do this to another child.
For Karen Knox, a woman who once considered Walls a member of the family, the sentence is a comfort as well.
I don't think he lived for his family like other men do. I think he used his family. I think they were a cover-up for him.
I wanted people to know that he was guilty as hell, that he did everything and more than those scouts said he did, and that he was supposed to be taken out of society. And as he was walking out of the courthouse that day, I was standing there and he said, "Well, hello, Karen." I looked at him, I said, "You go to hell."
The investigation and trial brought about more and more detail of Jack Walls' abuse and to the Boy Scouts of America's failures to stop him. One of the stories Wade told Karen was about a camping trip to the Philmont Scout Ranch in New Mexico. Considered one of the Boy Scouts of America's most valuable properties and a draw to scouts across the country for decades.
There was a letter that I saw when Jack Walls went to New Mexico, and they took a picture of him sitting with a bunch of other Boy Scouts in New Mexico. I knew there was a picture of that.
Of him at the Philmont branch.
Despite losing his registration with the Boy Scouts of America, Jack Walls went to Philmont in 1993, something he later admitted to under questioning. He signed in as Heath Stock's father, Joe.
My brother lets him go to Philmont on his name. He'll let Jack take his place because, Jack must have been doing good things for those boys. I'm going to support Jack.
And he wasn't even supposed to be there, Jack Walls. But he continued doing the same things right here that he had been doing and never stopped. He just did it under another name.
Wade said he tried to stay away from Jack. And he said, I waited till everybody in the camp was asleep. And he said, I sneaked out to the showers. And he said, I got into the shower and was taking my shower, and I turned around and Jack was standing there. So he was also molested at Philmont, Wade was.
And then you're sure that was 93, the year after the Jack had already been put on the ineligible volunteer list?
Those scout people at Philmont had known Jack for years and years and years. Why wasn't it caught then? Why didn't somebody say something about it then? Those people up in Philmont knew
that whole the trajectory of Wall's involvement after they said he was ineligible is outrageous. And the reason it's outrageous is because they knew he was a threat. And still, they had all these openings, all these possibilities for him to figure out. It didn't take him a lot of effort to get back into the system to find access to the board.
Again, there's the question. Philmont, why was no one charged? They knew this guy was dangerous. They certainly had heard the news. They heard the accusations. They knew what had happened. And they still let him be around those boys? Sounds complicit to me. Where's the charges? Why have none of these scout leaders been held accountable for this? It's like they got their fall guy, and this guy's a scumbag, absolutely. But what about everybody else who turned a blind eye? They are complicit in the abuse of these kids. Here it is after everything comes out, and he's on this camping trip, signs in under a fake name. What, nobody recognized his face? They let him just stay there and continue to abuse kids?
Boys. And so, we know from the FBI that the average number of victims for any serial pedophile is about 100 to 150. So the numbers aren't surprising. But at the same time, he had no need to go anywhere else to find more children. They were being supplied to him by a system that was working perfectly for his ends.
Because of what we now know about the Hogan case, we know they had a file on Jack Walls at the Boy Scouts. There, the Boy Scouts set with a file on this man. And here you are investigating him for abuse against Boy Scouts. And you weren't able to get that file.
No.
They still have that file.
They wouldn't give me anything. They wouldn't even contact me. They wouldn't call me. I did everything that I could other than drive out there to the Boy Scouts headquarters.
Boy Scouts of America is not safe for kids. It is safer, but it's not safe for kids.
In 2021, after leaving the Boy Scouts of America, Michael Johnson spoke out publicly about the organization's failures in dealing with sexual abuse in scouting.
If you look at what perpetrators need and want to sexually abuse, the Boy Scouts of America literally presents every potential for accessing these kids, opportunities to molest them, and the leverage to get the kids to go along with it and to keep them quiet.
During his time at the Boy Scouts of America, Michael Johnson tried to implement a policy that would require applicants to register with a government photo ID.
There is no government ID required to register in scouting. To fill out an application and submit it, or now they have registration online. There's no governmental ID verification of the person submitting the application. There is a verification with Social Security number, but you can still easily get around it by using your brother's or somebody else's.
Why are there no government ID checks?
No government ID checks on identity for volunteers to be around these kids. Far away from home, one-to-one, overnight, camping trips, and they don't require a government ID to even cross-check these people with any criminal past. Which reminds me about the top 10 social media apps that our kids are using today. Same thing. Anybody can sign up. Any predator can sign up on Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat or any of these. There's no identity verification. There's no age verification. You see, and this is where people have responsibility. Our kids are being thrown out there into this culture, and the tech companies, and in this case the scouts, had no responsibility to help keep them safe? How can a volunteer go work with kids and not have to provide an identification, a physical ID, a social security number? Really? Like you said, you can use anybody's social security number. It doesn't show a picture. And again, no charges on a broad scale for the Scouts, for the Boy Scouts of America.
I was told that it would be onerous on getting volunteers to participate in scouting, to ask them to show an ID.
So in Philmont, Jack Walls was already put on the ineligible volunteer list.
Correct.
He still goes with this scouting group to Philmont. He signs in with a fake name and he sexually abuses boys at Philmont while he's there. What would prevent that from happening again today?
Nothing. Nothing. Philmont doesn't have access to the ineligible volunteer files. The councils don't have access to the ineligible volunteer files.
It could happen again today.
Yes. What's to stop them?
Jack Walls was the kind of personality that could manipulate a boy like Heath, control him over years. And I've heard this kind of account from other victims.
He knew the system where he was going to get the children alone, and he exercised his power by essentially saying to them, no one's going to believe you if you tell anyone anyway. His mechanisms and his practices were very common.
So common that faced with rising numbers of sex abuse cases in states across the country, the Boy Scouts of America declared bankruptcy in 2020. 82,500 people came forward with their claims of sexual abuse, a number larger than for any national organization in U.S. history. That scouting image of honesty and innocence came under fire from news reports across the country.
Allegations of sexual abuse by the Boy Scouts of America have skyrocketed.
The number of accusations is even greater than those against the Roman Catholic Church in the U.S.
This is the biggest institutional sexual abuse case ever.
Hey, Jim, I'm Josh Rushing with Fault Lines.
Hi, Josh. How are you?
I'm good. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
This is your chair.
Look, you've seen the cases. You've watched the bankruptcy. We've had, many more cases than we expected. It's horrifying.
How many did you expect?
I don't know, but I didn't expect 80,000. And it's less the number, because don't think about it as a number. Think about it as a person. Every one of these people was harmed in our program.
I wanted to know what the Boy Scouts of America is doing to address the gaps in their system that could leave children vulnerable to predators.
When people do register with the Boy Scouts, it doesn't require a government ID, photo ID. Is that a policy that you're satisfied with and you feel safe with?
You're getting into the details of our policies that are not something that I'm prepared to talk about.
Another policy I wanted clarification on is the Boy Scouts of America's 72-hour rule.
The 72-hour rule is for any scouting activity, meeting or camp out, a volunteering adult does not have to be registered. That basically anybody who wants to help or show up can hang around scouts at meetings, and more importantly, have that access and opportunity at overnight camping activities, as long as they leave before 72 hours is up. Now, help me understand. Now that I explain that, does that make any sense?
Just to be clear, you're saying any adult can actually participate with Boy Scouts, and as long as they don't spend more than 72 hours with them.
I'm not
They
gonna
don't have to have a criminal background check,
Nope. Nope.
a government ID,
No.
registered.
No.
Can you believe that? So any adult can come and join with the Scouts, and as long as they're not there for more than 72 hours, no background check required, no identity check required. Because, yeah, they're not going to abuse the kids for, in the first 72 hours, right? What the hell kind of policy is that? And it's been like that since the beginning? Enabling predators to get access to the kids? God, to think of the tens of thousands, probably a million kids that have been through the Scouts since they've been around. Yeah, Alicia says it sounds like a convenient pedophile setup. And I'm saying it like that for the algorithm. It does. This is unbelievable. And of course, the guy on the board of the Boy Scouts, oh, I can't talk about our policies. Yeah, you don't want to admit it. Admit that you were setting it up for kids to be harmed.
No, not check.
Can you tell me what the 72-hour rule is?
I cannot.
That volunteers don't have to register with the Boy Scouts if it's for less than 72 hours. It's one of the standards for protecting the children.
Look, I can't tell you the details of we all go through youth protection training every year.
Well, I hate to say the devils are in the details here. If you're a pedophile looking to exploit an organization, there seem to be some open doors that I would assume that the leadership would want to know about it. And I'm a little frankly surprised that you don't know about.
I'm sorry you're surprised. We have extreme focus on protecting our youth. And if we have policies that need strengthening, we'd like to hear about it.
Okay. If Jack Walls got out of prison today, thank you for your time, and he moved to a town where no one knew him, and he said, I'm an Eagle Scout, former military, I'm retired, alone.
Got plenty of time
happy
to
help out."
volunteer.
Could he
Yes.
do it without even
Yes.
registering?
Yes.
Could
Yes.
he do it without a government ID?
Yes.
What's to stop Jack Walls from doing something like that?
Jack Walls has never been charged for any involvement in the Stocks murders. He wrote letters to me from prison denying he played any of changing his story to try to get out of prison. But at his sentencing, the judge told Jack Walls that Heath Stocks was his finest creation and that he became what he taught him to be. In the very least, he said, Jack Walls is indirectly responsible for the deaths of Joe, Barbara, and Heather Stocks.
I interviewed Heath on all the sexual abuse that was going on. This is some important information when you're sentencing somebody for 3 counts of murder and wondering what happened. It never got out. Who stands to lose the most? Jack Walls stands to lose the most, not Heath.
And I have no doubt that Jack forced Heath through manipulation to kill his parents or else. Whether Jack was physically present in the room, I do not know. That's between Jack, Heath, and God. But he was definitely in control of the situation.
Every scout we talked to said Jack said, if you can't fix it, you kill it. So his motive was, to teach them to kill for him. Hearing 50 stories about what Jack did to them or they saw Jack do to other people was reliable enough information to know that he was He was a rapist and a killer.
They looked into it. I'm not a lawyer.
You go on a case and you get the best that you can get on that case. In this particular case, we got the best that we could get on it, which was basically life without parole for Jack Walls. So you back off then, because there's nothing else that you can do. There's one thing that I wish I could have done better that I didn't do, and that was with Wade Knox. And that holds over me because Wade is one of those two boys that came by my office all the time and would talk to me. And I retired, and it was like I ran off on him, you know, and I left him out there by himself. And that really sticks on me. He had a rough time of it. Wade did.
I was hoping that in time we could put it all back together piece by piece and get Wade a lot of help, and everything would go back to normal. He would get overcome what had happened to him. But that's not the way child abuse works. You get into that brain and you're groomed and you're threatened and you're manipulated. It's there. It's there.
Very shy. Always was looking down. In pain, obviously. He could not stop the pain and the nightmares of what his uncle had done to him.
He was delusional. He couldn't carry on a conversation that meant anything. They took him to Baptist Hospital. So I called a day later and I said, well, I went and I said, is Wade Knox at the psychiatric ward? And they said, yes, he is. And I said, I want to see him. And they stopped me at the door and said, oh, you don't. You don't want to see him. And so they wouldn't let me see him. They said, he doesn't know anything. He doesn't know anybody. He's just here. Just like this. He was just staring out into space, rocking. He was just constant turmoil, you know. And out of one episode and go right back into another one. One night, I spent the whole night under a kitchen table with him with a blanket over him because Jack Walls was looking for him.
What happened to Wade?
My daughter had a baby, and it was my spring break. It was in March. And she wanted us to come up and keep the baby one day for her. So we did. And Wade said, don't worry about it. He was good then. And he said, don't worry about me. I will be okay. Well, Brooke, our oldest son, was supposed to check in with him, which he did. And his Charlie's mother was supposed to check in with him, which she did. But one afternoon, Brooke called us and said, Mama, Wade's dead. He shot himself. Right before he died, he said, Mom, we have got to make something good come out of this. He said, we've got to write a book. We've got to go to the schools and tell them about people like Jack. And he never lived to do it.
Felt like Wade did not get a fair shake at life, a fair chance at life. You either bend or you break when you're under stress. And I think Wade just kept bending and dealing with life his own way until he broke. Heath never got to be Heath. Heath was the version of Heath that Jack and his parents told him to be. And if they would have taken mine seriously, would Heath Stocks be in the position he is today?
It's so hard to explain to people and help them understand what it was like to have gone through that for 10 years and to believe it was coming to an end, and then realize not only did I fail to stop the abuse, but my abuse ended up getting my whole family killed.
When you look at Heath and you think that the abuse with Jack started when he was 10 years old and he went straight from that to prison, do you think he ever had a chance?
No, sadly, no, because the poison that he was fed, as far as it ruined the relationship with his parents. The misplaced trust and love in Jack Walls. I don't know if he could have ever recovered from that. Nobody knows if he is safe to be let out in society. So he's a victim and he's a perpetrator. And it is a problem that criminal justice system has to deal with. When you don't get help, how do you know if you can function in society again?
It was like, this is the only part of my brother that's left. So what would they want me to do? How would they want me to feel? And they would want me to love him, even though he was a cause of their death, because they loved him so much. In real life, they would love him. They'd still love him. And so that's what I felt for him. That was the best I could do.
The cost is immeasurable, because how many boys committed suicide? You know, I know Wade has, I know several others. They're addicted to drugs. Their families are destroyed. The boys grew up to be men. They couldn't have successful marriages. The divorce. How many of us came to prison for acting out our pain? The consequences for the Boy Scouts not ensuring Jack was no longer a part of scouting after the Hogan matter cost lives, cost futures, cost hope, and cost generations the possibility of all the things that we could have become.
Wow. Do we get the picture? This is why we do what we do. Whether it's 1, 5, 10, or 500, we try to get the word out. This is why we need you. Spread the word. To raise awareness. To educate people. Parents. Grandparents. Educate your kids. Now, there's a lot in there. Kids do have behavior problems. It's not always because they're being abused, but it certainly could be. All the things that should have been different throughout this whole story are learning lessons now. Alicia makes a great point. How many more Boy Scout organizations have done this? You know, and there's other organizations. Little League Baseball comes to mind. I do coach for my nephew's team, and I've often thought about that. I wonder what kind of, now they background check, you know, all the volunteers, but I do see where they let a lot of parents and other family members participate in different things. They're generally not allowed on the field, but there is a family game and stuff, so there's opportunity for other adults to start socializing with other people's kids. But when you have an organization as big as the Boy Scouts or even Little League Baseball, which millions and millions of kids, Catholic Church, and now the technology groups like TikTok and all these other ones, don't believe for a minute that they're going to protect your kids. You have to. Now, the Boy Scouts, as part of the settlement, besides the money, have instituted government ID background checks for every leader. The volunteer rule, as you saw there, was suspended. I believe they're background checking even volunteers now, people that come along maybe even for a day. I think they probably have to go through screening. They shouldn't even be in business still. And we can ask, why, God? Why? Evil is going to triumph when good people turn and do nothing. And a lot of people failed these kids. They failed them. These kids didn't have a chance because people didn't want to look at a scary reality. But they have to. No one's going to protect your kids but you, parents, grandparents. You got to do it. Organizations like ours and tons of others trying to do their part. But we need your help. We've said this before. We need to reach a whole lot more people with these live shows, with the information that we have and what we present every week. We're very limited right now. But there is a lot of organizations that are trying to help too. The parents have to wake up and realize that no one's protecting your kids. Nobody. The Boy Scouts are still in business. The Catholic Church still runs. Keep your eyes open. Keep your ears open. Ask the right questions. Be prepared. A little healthy paranoia never hurts. It doesn't have to occupy your life, but keep it in the back of your mind. And most of you out there, you got kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews, cousins, whatever. You have to be looking out for them, especially if their parents aren't. And that's our show for tonight. Please share this. We ask you every week to please share it. Honestly, about 5 people share the podcast. 5. Now, we don't know how many people are actually seeing that we had a live show. We post about it for a couple days afterwards, but we've noticed on average maybe 5 shares out of 5,000 on Facebook, out of 700 on Twitter. out of 300 on YouTube, and out of about 40 on Rumble. We're getting there on Rumble. 5. It's not good enough. How hard is it? Copy, share. It's not that hard, but not many are doing it. You can donate to help at our website, protectyourchildren.org. All that money goes right back into the organization. It helps to promote education and awareness. Tax deductible, of course. There's ways that you can help. Alicia said she connected with us on Instagram. Thank you. We're trying to work it out where we can go live on Instagram as well. This platform that we use offers that ability now. So we're trying to figure out how to do that. I think you have to have a professional account, or we're trying to stream on Instagram as well. A lot of kids on Instagram that need to come across these broadcasts. We're working on that as well. That's it for this week. God willing, we'll be together next Wednesday. Everybody have a great Christmas, great holiday. Most people have half a day Friday. Have a great family day on Monday. Treasure the kids. Keep your eyes open for anything weird. And God willing, we'll be back next Wednesday live, 9 p.m.